dive right in and get comfortable diving into the big issues. So I want to thank each of you for your remarks. And, you know, it's a very real reality for so many of our businesses right now that are facing challenges. The trade tariffs are here. They aren't something that we're planning for anymore. We're experiencing them on the ground today. And they're having impacts, significant impacts, in our communities across the Fraser Valley and across Canada. This is also Small Business Month, and so we know that most of our businesses are actually those SMEs, and they are experiencing those challenges as we see economic uncertainty having those knock-on effects at the community level. And so, you know, I just want to dive in right now and talk about, we framed a little bit of this conversation around the challenges that are happening and then some of the opportunities that we're seeing. But let's talk a little bit about doing business in Canada at this moment in time. And we've been known for being a very cautious type of country, and we have risk aversion to making big decisions and big moves sometimes. I'd like each of you to remark on that and how we get to the place of actually taking some of those bolder actions and addressing some of those long-standing challenges that have been plaguing our economic growth. And Ed, I'll start with you, and I think it's just one for each of you to dive into.
Well, thanks so much for mentioning risk aversion. I mention that quite often when I speak publicly to small, medium-sized enterprises. The reason we've become risk averse is because we have traded with the United States for so long. It's a market we understand. It's a market that has been safe. It has been a market that has had very few obstacles to penetrating that market. And so over the years, small and medium-sized enterprises have simply defaulted to doing business with the United States without understanding that there's a whole world of opportunities beyond North America that we could be exploring. And of course, over the last, say, 20 years, Canada has negotiated trade agreements with well over 51 countries. These are free trade agreements that open up markets to our exporters, to our importers as well. And we haven't been taking advantage of those because of risk aversion. And I just want to tell all of you, there are many tools available that will allow Canadian companies to relatively safely traverse these sometimes treacherous shoals of international trade. There are tools available at the federal government level, privately. I would mention the Trade Commissioner Service and the Export Development Corporation, which can actually insure against some of the risks involved in exporting. So risk aversion is a challenge for Canada, and we're going to have to communicate well with SMEs to let them know there is help out there, there are tools available.
Thanks. Stewart, your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts, and thanks, Ed, for putting things together in your earlier remarks so well, the big trends, and that got me thinking about this question. It's almost the, you know, I've told you I'm a news guy. It's almost the anti-news, the stuff you never hear about because there's nothing you can put in the news. It's when you become uninvestable. I heard that phrase in reference to BC, the BC forest sector, probably 4 years ago with the truck loggers. One of the experts, BC's uninvestable. Sorry guys, later. And it has become that way. And yesterday I heard the same thing, the forest industry is still uninvestable. But it's not just, you know, one sector. It's when that investor, you know, Chicago, Zurich, whatever, you know, they're just not interested. You know, 20 years, really? How much? You know, how you regulate the same thing in province, BC, and federally? They just don't get it. They don't get Canada, and that's made us uninvestable. So you don't really, you know, there's never a headline, you know, so-and-so doesn't invest $1 billion in Canada because they don't even get out of the starting gate to have that discussion. So you can't even say, we lost it, but we, you know, I think everyone senses this. You're in business, you hear these things. And, you know, it's not just you hearing that. I find it's pervasive. And, you know, when you've got a really good opportunity and someone says, I would like to invest in that, that's a rare, special thing, you know. They don't come along where all the things that line up. You know, someone told me from an LNG project, I found it hard to believe, but this was a very credible person with jobs in finance and projects. He said to me, well, a small group, like a few people at a small lunch, every single bank in the world looked at one of the LNG projects on the coast as a potential investor. I thought, wow, can you believe that? It had to be a true statement, and Heather, who knows a thing or two about this, is nodding. So that has to line up. But what about all the other things where every insurance company in the world, every construction firm with the scale has to be in this? You need all of that to do this stuff. And when we have governments that say, oh, you spent $800 billion on that project, we're pleased to tell you, we are not going to approve you, goodbye. You did all the things that we told you to do. Yes, we know your communities were lined up behind you, but you know what? We don't like your face. Get lost. They remember that. Sorry.
Look at you, Heather. What do you think?
We do. Thanks a lot. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach to this. I really believe that small, medium enterprises really need to look at industry adjacency. We're all very good at looking at what is our product, what is our service, where does it fit into our current industry, our current market, that sort of thing. And there is a lot more industry adjacency out there than I think people realize. And I sit and I look around this room and I think of the adjacency to the energy industry. Looking at this helicopter here, I'm like, Western's proposing to build another pipeline. We need a lot of helicopters, right? I look at agriculture and where energy fits into the agricultural sector. And I sometimes think as small, medium enterprises, we need to think about how do we fit in, or where can we fit in differently? How do I grow? Who can I talk to? Certain industries are flavors of the day with the government, and sometimes that can get you better investment, access to better programs. As Stewart said, every bank in the world looked at LNG projects on BC's coast. Those banks are also really interested in everyone else that's supporting that, right? So just something to keep in mind is adjacency to, I don't want to say the flavor of the day, but adjacency to the flavor of the day, and where can that fit in as well.
I also want to invite everyone, if you have some questions that you would like answered, feel free to submit them on Slido. I believe the information's on the screen there, but I'll start pulling some questions from the audience as well. Now for all of you, again, you've brought national and provincial perspectives to this conversation. We've also heard about the announcements about the Major Projects Office and some of the big shifts that are happening at that federal level in Canada, where there seems, at least in terms of the messaging, to be a shift towards, Stewart's favorite expression of getting big things done. There seems to be that shift in that conversation that we're having as a country. I think back to, the Chamber participated in a Canadian Chamber mission to Washington, D.C. in March, right at the outset of the tariff conversations, and we had industry associations from across Canada, all in the room together, all talking about, we need to actually fix some of this stuff. We need to fix competitiveness. We need to fix productivity. Let's go. What does it take to move beyond that conversation around getting it done and doing things differently and moving things along to actually doing it? What needs to happen? Heather, I think you want to jump in. Go for it.
It is really simple. We need policy reform. We really do. Nothing is going to change and nothing is going to get done until we start reforming some policies in this country. The oil and gas industry has put out what they call the nine laws that need to change, everything from Bill C-69 to others. Major Projects Office, it's a Band-Aid. I mean, projects are still going to have all the exact same issues unless you start changing policies. Simple as that.
And we've got lots of decision makers in the room here today too, so this is good. Stewart, I think you've got something.
Thoroughly endorse it, and for me that leads to, so how do you get that bit done? And I think one of the things that when you have a convening platform as you are, you have really an ability as the chamber to help the decision makers, because when you get to know, you realize there's not really any one person who can say it's your fault that we have 15-year permitting times for these things. It's not one person's fault. Most reasonable people you talk to, they actually, yeah, we should have. But they need help to do that. So I think what elected representatives in particular need, provincial and federal, and in many ways and senses, municipal too, is the solid belief that the public is behind them. And just saying, oh, the polls are behind you, go and do that. I mean, that you can't really take that to, the places that need to change. You need to have more manifestations of that public strength. It's not just me saying it, it's this evidence, and here's those names, here's the people showing up, here's people ready to vote a certain way, who will vote on these values that are shared. I'm not talking about, the color of your ideology. I'm talking about, what things you want to see done in your community if you're not content with things as they are. And so that's how you help those leaders. I mean, we all have a sense of that, but I think in a real sense, Ed, I would defer to any of your thoughts in this, of course, but I think where in Ottawa and Victoria, it cannot be denied that the people want this change. And it's this more technical thing with regulatory stuff, but it's real to them, and they demand it.
I agree with both of you. But I would say also this, we should be honest about what's happening in Canada. For the last decade, we have not had an economic growth agenda. We just haven't. We've certainly expanded the size of our national budget. We've expanded the size of the Social Security net. But have we actually undertaken dramatic change in how we drive economic growth in Canada? No. In fact, I would suggest we've gone backwards for the reasons that both of you have already mentioned, but other reasons as well. Before we can actually implement policy change, there has to be political capital to do so. And that takes decision makers at the federal and the provincial and maybe even the municipal level to go out there and sell the public on what Canada so critically needs. Yes, we need to open up our resource sector. I think everyone agrees on that. And I can say now that I'm not restricted and shackled by political considerations, that I'm encouraged that our Prime Minister is at least turning his mind to the issue of productivity, of economic growth and prosperity, and the underlying elements of what will deliver those kinds of outcomes. The Major Projects Office is one piece of that, but there's much, much more that has to be done. And yes, it's going to require a major policy change at the federal and provincial levels. And before that happens, you have to have the political capital to do so, and the political courage and will to do so. And that's why I say to all the decision makers here in the crowd today, maybe muster up that courage. Start to talk about making the tough decisions that will ensure future prosperity of our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren.
We're in the Fraser Valley agriculture sector, significant driver, manufacturing, aerospace, aviation. Sometimes you hear comments like, is agriculture, are natural resources these sunset industries? We know they're not, but I'd like to hear, maybe this is one for you, Stewart. I'd like you to remark on what you see the potential in terms of the opportunity to unleash prosperity, as we see a helicopter coming right by us here. What do you think that potential is for unleashing Fraser Valley prosperity in some of these sectors?
Yeah, and unleashing it in a way that is relatable to your communities. There was a campaign years ago, First Dollar campaign, that was trying to get across to people that when you take a product that you've made or grown and you walk down to the border and you exchange it with an American who gives you $1 for that $1 thing, and you take that dollar back, that's the first dollar coming into the community, and then that can be spent at the barbershop, at the gas station. But if all you're doing is buying coffees and haircuts for those who need them, I don't mind you. It doesn't build the economy, and we need more things that bring in that first dollar, because foreign countries have this really annoying habit of insisting on being paid for the things they give us, whether those are, iPhones or it's orange juice. They want the money. Where do we get the money? There's only one way we can get it, is to get the first dollar, and so we have to, get into trade. I mean, that's, okay, elementary school, but, I think we can slow down as business people, sophisticated MBAs, and just consider who the audiences you're dealing with. You're dealing with new Canadians, you're dealing with people in a hurry because they're doing 3 jobs, family, everything. We really need to take the time so that people really, they don't just think, yeah, that sounds true, to really feel it, so that they know that, okay, what you're talking about is not a first dollar. You're saying that you're gonna build the economy on, selling secondary services. I don't believe you when you say you're building the economy with that thing, because there is so much flammery, political rhetoric, that the public just seems to say, yeah, I guess so. Well, it's not so. So we don't need to call it out in divisive, fiery exchanges. You're lying. I think we just need to come forward with the facts in a way that the average person out there can say, yeah, that's right. I believe it.
I've got a question from Slido, and I think this one's a good one for you, Ed. The question is, despite all the political rhetoric about removing trade barriers and interprovincial trade barriers, we've seen little progress. What's holding us back? Why can't we get it done yet?
Well, yeah, political will is what's holding it back. Remember, we live within a federation, and
can I ask, is it political will at the federal level? Is it at the provincial level? Like, where is the
at
real
both
blockage?
at the federal level, I would say my experience has been, there's been a willingness to work with the provinces to eliminate those trade barriers interprovincially. But at the end of the day, those barriers are heavily implicated amongst the provinces. And I haven't seen a long-term commitment to actually eliminating those. Because, if it's your own ox that's being gored, and you have a political constituency that you have to satisfy at home, you might be more reluctant to actually make progress in removing those barriers. So across the country, I think there's a federal will to do this. Brad, I would suggest, Brad, that's the case, to actually get something done in terms of driving billions of dollars of additional GDP by freeing up trade amongst the provinces. It hasn't happened yet to any significant degree, though.
So is it that our premiers need to get on board with maybe the little give and take? Like, do we need a more national consensus around some of these issues to say, let's work together to get something like?
Well, look at the bun fight that just happened between BC and Alberta. That is symptomatic of the challenge we face in Canada, trying to get an economic growth policy in place that's going to not only free up our opportunities around the world, but within our own country.
Well, since we like to get a little bit spicy in Chamberland, I'm going to ask both of you, do you have a remark on some of the comments that have been made recently about no market demand for...
I actually just want to follow up on Ed's point. I'm going to be a little spicy here. We have egos and personalities at play. That is all that is, right? We're not looking at what is best for Canadians. We're looking at what's best for me as a politician. We're looking at, do I like that person? Don't I like that person? And that is underpinning a lot of what is going on when it comes to interprovincial trade, in my opinion.
Your thoughts? Is there a business case for what's been talked about in the media around market demand for pipeline development? What do you have to say about that, Stewart?
There's a business case. Yes, I mean, there's a business case. And people know there's a business case. And they know when, people are standing in front of them just telling barefaced lies. I can't believe it. But my staff said, hey boss, you got to get into TikTok and stuff, Instagram. So, okay. Anyways, we've been doing a bit of that, and I did this like Friday, just like off the cuff. I was sort of on this very question, Alex. It was like, I can't believe that the Premier BC could say that, there's no Alberta oil product in that pipeline, because like I've been to Edmonton, I went out to Sherwood Park, and I've actually seen the spot where coming out of the, what used to be called the Kinder Morgan, the Trans Mountain Terminal up there, you can see where it goes underground, and then it doesn't, it maybe comes up in Kamloops and stuff, but you know, you can't get other oil from Texas in there, or Russia. I mean, what comes out of this end is from Alberta. I'm like 99.999% sure the oil coming out of the Trans Mountain Pipeline down to Burnaby is from Alberta. There's just no other way you can get oil in there. And also, it's full. So in my office in Vancouver, I can look out. It's now like one tanker. They come in, when they come in from open sea, come in, they're empty. And you can tell because they're higher in the water, there's more red paint. And then when they come out, there's less red paint. Unfortunately, you can't, you know, there's still some red paint showing because we got some work to do with the dredging, right? But anyways, it's way down in the water. So somehow that thing, like Archimedes, remember Eureka? I mean, okay, that's doing that because it's got something in it from the pipeline. I mean, I'm just gonna say that logically, I've derived a proof point that Premier Green must be wrong when he says that there's no Alberta oil flowing. And I don't want to make it personal or anything because, you know, I'm probably the loser in that equation. But anyways, we did a TikTok at come in Monday, and then social media rave thing. You know, everyone, there's 150,000 views on this, and it's like everyone is sharing, watching this. I guess it was on Instagram. It's probably on TikTok too. Of just a 1 minute rant where I was making this point. Anyways, all I'm trying to say is, you know, check me on TikTok. But more importantly, when you get that sort of uptake, it's because, you know, it's got some traction. People are talking about it. You know, there was some partisan back and forth, but mainly it was about just what I was saying. Yeah, that's true. This guy's true.
I'm guessing you didn't get a like from Premier Eve's account on your TikTok, did you?
And I'm waiting for my invitation to the Christmas party.
So you think there's a business case, is what I've got from that. I'm gonna pull one more question from Slido and then wrap us up because I know we always like to stay on time at our events. And this is a great question about next generation. Specifically, we're talking so much about artificial intelligence right now, and you know, there's every kind of discussion about whether we're going to see those initial jobs, those early opportunities for our young people to gain the experience in the workforce. We're seeing a lot of those potentially being eliminated. In the context of that big macro challenge, how do you think that we can best support our young folks, our young talent, and young entrepreneurs in this shifting labor force so that they have the skill sets that they need to be able to be successful? I'd love to hear each of you remark really briefly on that before we wrap up.
I'll start. We have to inspire the next generation of Canadian entrepreneurs. How do we do that if startups in Canada don't get spooled up quickly and very quickly get bought up by Americans and by businesses from other countries? That isn't inspirational for young Canadian entrepreneurs. I think Canadians and entrepreneurs themselves would like to do business in Canada long term. They would like to make a success here in our country, but have a global impact. But right now, our ecosystem in Canada, I think this has been articulated many, many different fora and venues and publications. We don't spool up those startups. We don't have the ecosystem where Canadian entrepreneurs say, hey, you know what? Everything I need is here. I've got a market here, which we don't, of course. There's a much larger market to the south of us. But beyond that, are there the government supports to keep us in Canada? Will our IP be protected in a manner that allows us to extract value for it? How will we monetize the investments we're making of time, of intelligence, into the products and services we're trying to deliver to the world? That confidence isn't there right now, in my mind.
So we're marking on some of those challenges. You know, Stewart and Heather, do you have some thoughts around how we address some of this? And
Yeah, well, you know, from the point of view of students and them choosing their career paths, getting into the first dollar opportunities will also get them into the highest wage, salary, and family building, you know, wages. Because of the fact that what brings in the money is the job that can more easily distribute that money through the workforce. And so, On the innovation side, I do feel that we have a problem with startups. I've been quite involved as a co-founder of a startup in mining wastewater technology, using some breakthrough technology developed right here at UBC, chemical engineering. And it's a slog here. We had a failure of a federal program that we were banking on several years ago through murkiness that's not even sure it's resolved yet. And you know, my co-founders in San Francisco today just won a global recognition with a lot of money attached to it because of bringing that idea there. Saudi Arabia wants our technology. We are doing services with Spain and Australia. But in Canada, I'm not blaming anyone. I mean, there's something that we're not regarding that as, you know, sort of the output of our investments in our universities and all the other things. Like, we should protect that. I think most companies that have that startup culture see it as a strategic asset, a security thing, and I don't sense that here, except for, you know, certain things.
Are there any last thoughts on that next generation piece?
Yeah, I want them to know that there's hope. I look at the LNG industry. It's an emerging industry. We've got LNG Canada that's online right now. You have wood fiber, you have cedar, hopefully we'll have slisms. Each one of those is will employ approximately 300 people. Those are net new jobs per site. That doesn't include contractors who are supporting those projects, right? Those are jobs that didn't exist before. These are also generational careers. These are also, you know, jobs that we know we don't have enough people in Canada to fill. So there's huge opportunity there. We need governments to come to the table to support in that training. We need young people to be open to working in our natural resource industry again. I mean, forestry's been gutted, mining's been gutted. Young people don't look to natural resources as a future. We need to change that. We need to show them that there is hope, that there is a long-term future there. You don't have to work directly for the operator. There is a ton of opportunity if you want to be a small business owner, providing that support to those industries, or to those companies. And as I said before, it's that industry adjacency piece. But there is hope.
I like that. There is some hope. Rapid fire to close us off. I'd like to invite each of you. One sentence. What's your takeaway for this audience here in the Fraser Valley about how we can unleash prosperity in our communities?
Abbotsford I think it is in some ways the envy of our province. We are the agricultural capital of our province, and we have aerospace here. We've got a highly educated workforce. We have life sciences taking place right here. We have all the ingredients, proximity to the United States. We have all the ingredients necessary to be highly successful. The Fraser Valley is well positioned. So you were talking about hope. I agree. We should be giving hope to the next generation of Canadians. And I hope they take away from here just a realistic assessment of the environment that they're stepping into, but in fact that there is tremendous hope. Canada is a relatively young country. We're still finding ourselves, and hopefully over the coming years we're going to get it right.
Let's get it right. Stewart, your sentence.
Yeah, say true things. And this is a deep comment to me. Over the last decade, having spent many years in advocacy, I have seen a culture in politics of, you just mute yourself, buddy, or you're not getting a meeting. I mean, honestly, that has happened in government affairs, and people are in the penalty box. I've met many association heads representing, or chamber heads, and if they say something that's not allowed to be said, even though it's true, then they're not getting meetings. Maybe they'll lose their permits. And that is a culture that is broken when you have that. You should be able to go to government and say, you know what, here's a true thing that you need to consider. Not be sent out in humiliation and never get a meeting.
The last thing I want to say is Canada Powered by Women wants to work with organizations such as yourself. As I said at the very onset, we base everything we talk about on facts, on data, not feelings. It is hard to refute facts. And so what we can do is partner with you to give you data to take to the table, to take to conversations that you have with governments, with policymakers, as they're developing policies across the country that may work for us, may not work for us. But reach out. I mean, we're always happy to have that conversation. We love coming out to organizations such as this, such as the Chamber, and to be able to talk about what we're doing, but also to show you how the energy sector intersects with you. So thank you.
I think that piece around say true things is going to stick with me, and the reality that hard things are hard, but it's worthwhile. And so we've got a long way to go to fix some challenges, but we've got, as Ed said, the right ingredients in our region to be able to do it. So I really want to thank the three of you once again for your comments, your insights, your expertise. Thank you for joining us. Can you give them one more round of applause? On that note, I want to say a couple more thank yous. Thank yous to our sponsors, so Dome Grant Thornton, Enbridge, Trans Mountain, Fortis BC, to Kathy Press of Chinook for hosting us here today. You know, these kinds of conversations really matter, and we know we've got the building blocks in the Fraser Valley to support growth. And really, when we empower our entrepreneurs and our businesses, our private sector job creators, if we just unleash you to do what you do best, our communities benefit. Our strong businesses equal our strong communities. And so I'm really excited to share on behalf of the Fraser Valley Business Coalition. Again, Corey alluded to it earlier, but we will be back in May with the second annual Fraser Valley Economic Summit. And you've heard it here first. The date will be May 21st. So please mark your calendars for that. We really are excited to convene another impactful conversation, a day of programming and content around the future of our region. So May 21st. We're looking forward to it. With that, I want to thank all of you for being a part of today's conversation. I want to thank our Chamber of Commerce team, Jada, Amanda, Taylor over on the side, our board members that are here in the room, and again, our Fraser Valley Business Coalition partners who are igniting these conversations that really matter. There's a couple of upcoming events. Mark your calendars for those. We've got Business Excellence Awards happening. There's some in Mission, in Abbotsford, and lots of great gatherings that you can stay tuned for as well. So thank you all for being a part of today. Get home safe, and we'll be following up with all of you for the next chapter. Thanks.